So this is your daily way to work for the last, how many years?
40 years, 45 years. I moved from Rehovot to Jerusalem in 1966, a year before the war. And I've been here ever since. One of the topics that I decided to work on was the chemistry of the plant Cannabis sativa. Cannabis had been used for thousands of years, both as a drug as a recreational agent, but surprisingly, the active compound was never isolated in pure form. I decided, together with my colleague Yehiel Gaoni, to go and do research and find out what are the compounds present in cannabis, and particularly what is the active compound, or active compounds present there. Well, a scientist should try to find topics of importance. And I thought that this is a topic of importance. I knew that the police have a lot of cannabis, hashish, that's being smuggled from the Lebanon, and after all the legal things were completed, they usually burn it. I was at the Weizmann Institute at that time, a very young person. I went to the director of the Weizmann Institute, the administrative director, and asked him, do you know anybody in the police who can supply hashish to us for research? So he called one of his friends, can you supply cannabis to one of our researchers? And I hear from the other side somebody shouting, is he, meaning me, is he reliable? And the administrative director, who actually almost didn't know me, said, yes, of course he's reliable. Let him come over and pick some hashish. I went over, I didn't have a car, took a bus, got 5 kilos of hashish, went on the bus, and people in the bus after 15, 20 minutes just started asking, what the hell is this smell, very unusual smell? I mean, I had 5 kilos of hashish in my bag going around.
But I guess you're the only person in the world that took 5 kilos of hashish from the police and got away with it.
Well, probably yes. It turned out that the police were not allowed to give us cannabis. I didn't have the permit from the Ministry of Health, therefore I had broken the law and the police had broken the law and we should go to prison. Well, it doesn't work that way. I went to the Ministry of Health and some of them were colleagues of mine and the others knew what I was doing. So I said, I apologize, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Next time when I want hashish, I'll go to the ministry. If and when I needed hashish, I went to the Ministry of Health, I filled the form, I drank some coffee with them, they gave me the permit, I went with the permit every time to the police. The police, I drank some more coffee with them, and I got my hashish and went back to the lab. We started working on those 5 kilos of hashish. We didn't have a safe. It was just in one of the cupboards in the lab. Nobody really was that interested. So we started extracting it. We started using modern methods. Now, this is important. Up till the mid-60s, even before that, in order to find the structure of a compound, one had to do a lot of reactions. Then, and we were one of the first to do that in Israel, we found that by using the proper instruments, one could find the structure of compounds without doing a lot of chemistry. We put the compound on a column. It is absorbed here, if there are 2 or 3 compounds. This is the way we separated originally the compounds from cannabis. But that was many, many, many years ago. We separated about 10 or 12 compounds, and these compounds included the only one active compound. Active, we tested at that time in monkeys. I had a colleague who worked in a nearby institute, and he had a colony of monkeys, and he and his group indeed tested these compounds in monkeys, and surprisingly found that only one compound did anything in these monkeys. It sedated them. They didn't sleep, but they were sedated. On the basis of this particular observation, we decided there is just one active compound, and surprisingly, this is true to this very day. There is only one major active compound, which is named now delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol THC, and this compound causes essentially all the hashish type, cannabis type effects that we know so well. We wanted to see whether this compound, which acts on monkeys, acts also on humans. So we did a small experiment.
There's a wonderful story. It was many years ago about the cake, the special cake that Dalia made.
Well, that was the real testing of THC.
We had a few of our friends take 10 milligrams of pure THC on a piece of cake that my wife prepared, and 5 took only the cake without the THC, and we compared the effects. None of us had ever used cannabis before. As a matter of fact, very few people had used cannabis at that time in Israel. All those that took the THC were affected, but surprisingly, they were affected differently. Some said, well, we just feel kind of strange in a different world. We want to sit back and enjoy it. Another one said, nothing happens, but he didn't stop talking all the time. A third one said, well, nothing happens, but every 15, 20 seconds, he will burst out laughing. These effects are well known today. People are differently affected. In one case, however, one of the participants got into an anxiety state. She felt, I believe, that her psychological guards, if you wish, were breaking down, and all of a sudden she was open to everybody. So she really got into an anxiety state. In some cases, we definitely see anxiety attacks. Most do not. Most just feel kind of a little bit disoriented, maybe a little bit sedated, maybe a little bit open to discussion and socially open to whatever is being discussed.
You remember what kind of cake it was?
Well, it was a very tasty cake. But if you want any details, I can ask my wife the exact details. Well, I'm married to Dalia. We've married for a few years, about 60 years now, almost.
Can we go back to the time that you met?
We were friends in the army, and then a couple of years later we got married. As a matter of fact, we got married while I was still in the army. We lived in Tel Aviv, and I worked in Rehovot. And then 1966, we moved to Jerusalem, and we've been here ever since.
בוקר טוב.
בוקר טוב.
שלחתי.
תודה.
In this particular apartment ever since.
שלום, בוקר טוב. מה שלומך?
סביר, סביר. אמנם מה אפשר לצפות מיום שמתחיל בזה שצריך לקום? I'm lazy and I forget things, and Dalia, I feel that Dalia has to be next to me if I want to survive on a trip.
But you love going to these meetings?
Well, meetings are useful in many ways. People learn what other people are doing and going to do. What they have done is published, so I don't have to go to meetings to learn what other people have done in the past.
Manuel, nice to see you.
Most meetings are just getting people from different aspects of a topic. They talk to each other and maybe something new comes out.
If you really look at the history and what's been going on ever since he discovered THC, he's not just discovered THC and then just, relied on that and didn't do much. But he continued to have such a vision for the next step and the next step and the next step. 9, 8. Is that a test for whether I'm intoxicated or not?
Yes.
My name is Mahmoud A. El Soli. I am a research professor at the University of Mississippi. Cannabis is what I'm known for. Cannabis is a very old plant, a very old medicine, if you will, that people have used it for so many indications over the years. In the literature, marijuana has been used for all different types of things. One would say, well, this is crazy. There's no such plant that can, do all of this. And today, it's very easy to really go back to this old literature about the different indications for which marijuana was prescribed and find out that there is justification for that.
Cannabis was used in the Middle East for thousands of years.
As medicine.
Who knows, maybe for other things as well.
Many of the tribes at the time used cannabis.
Assyrians used it for medicine, used it for excitation, as used it in religion. The Egyptians used it as medicine.
Surprisingly, the Greeks and the Romans didn't know about psychoactivity, but they used cannabis as an anti-inflammatory drug. Cannabis in India was used by people who want to be delivered from all worries and care. Well, that's quite a good definition of anti-anxiety.
We knew that cannabis had been used for epilepsy.
In the past.
In the past, there is, for example, a translation of Arab story of the 15th century, and it says that one of the Arab leaders had epilepsy. Physician came over and gave him cannabis, and it cured him, but he had to take it for his entire life. So the field kind of told us, try it on epilepsy. We first tried it in animals, and it worked. So at this point, we decided to go into humans. Trial took place in Sao Paulo. They had about 10 people that had epilepsy that could not be affected by the known drugs. We started giving them high doses of cannabidiol, 200 milligrams per day.
And you were producing the cannabidiol from hashish?
For almost 40 years, we didn't produce it. We isolated it. We separated it from hashish. Hashish contains about 4%, 5% cannabidiol. So it is really quite difficult to isolate, to obtain large amounts, but we did that. We were happy to note that indeed they had no seizures while they were taking cannabidiol. And it was published, and nothing happened afterwards. So far, 34 years later, this is the only publication of cannabidiol in humans against epilepsy. When one starts research, one never knows how it ends. You know how you start. I was born in Bulgaria, and I was a child during the war. I was very well aware of what's going on. My father, before the war, he was a physician, and he was head of the Jewish hospital in Sofia, in addition to his private practice. When the anti-Jewish laws were put into effect, and there were very severe anti-Jewish laws, he decided that maybe, just maybe, going to one of the small villages which badly needed doctors, he and his family will be in a safer place than staying in Sofia, where the laws were obvious all the time. He was appointed as a village doctor in 1942, I believe it was, and for about 2 or 3 years we spent moving from village to village, and he was the village doctor in many of these places. And I didn't feel so bad at that time. In the village, the doctor was considered an important person, and so we were treated very well, and there was no anti-Semitism, and we had no major problems. But at some point, somebody decided that my father should be taken to a concentration camp, and he was taken to a concentration camp, and the concentration camp burnt. And my father was the only doctor on the spot, not that he could do much, because he had no drugs, nothing to help them, but he helped them to a certain extent. Then he was shortly thereafter released. Luckily, the Bulgarian Jews were not killed. The conditions were bad enough, but Bulgarian Jews were not killed. My uncle saved them. How? There was in the Ministry of Interior in Bulgaria, they were planning to send all the Jews to Poland, to the extermination camps. So the leaders of the Jewish community said, look, we have to know in advance what they're planning. My uncle was a young man, very representative, really everybody loved him. They say, you find one of the secretaries and become her lover, and she'll tell you everything. And that's what happened. So I have to write that sometime with a greater detail. So he knew, the community leaders knew exactly what was being planned several weeks in advance or even a month in advance. So they then tried to prevent it by talking to people in the parliament and so on. And the people in the parliament said, that's against the constitution and so on. How the hell did you know that they were going to do it? Oh, we just heard about it. After the war in 1948, 1949, most Bulgarian Jews came to Israel. We came 1949. I worked for a limited period of time as a land surveyor, and later I went into the army, spent a couple of years in the army doing research, as a matter of fact, research on insecticides, and I took my PhD degree on a topic, natural products related to biological problems. I did the same when I went to the Rockefeller Institute. When I came back, and I got a position at the Weizmann Institute, I was looking for problems that are in that field, namely chemistry problems related to biological problems.
But why cannabis?
You see, doing research in a small country with a very limited budget, my philosophy was that one should try to find out topics that are not being pursued by the major groups throughout the world. We cannot compete with them. It's obvious that we should try to find, by studying the literature, by thinking about important projects, we should follow research pathways that were not being followed by major groups. Nobody was working on cannabinoid chemistry. So we thought at that time that this is a project worth following.
In 1986, in the introduction to cannabinoids as therapeutic agents, after summarizing the knowledge about the historical use of cannabis, you leave us with a question. Are we missing something? What is that thing?
We knew a lot about the plant cannabinoids. They had been evaluated in the test tube. They had been evaluated in animals, to a certain extent in human patients, but nothing was known at that time about the mechanism. A group in the US, Professor Aline Howlett, she was a young researcher at that time in St. Louis.
I really didn't know very much at all about marijuana or cannabinoids. That wasn't my area of expertise. In the United States, we need DEA approval to get cannabinoid drugs for research. So I got through the approval. I got some Delta-9 THC and did these studies and found some very interesting things.
Dr. Howlett found in the brain a specific receptor for THC. It was named the CB1 receptor, cannabinoid receptor number 1.
Now that was a major discovery in the mid-80s. So here we had, for the first time, an indication that THC acts on a receptor.
So that was the first momentous discovery. And then once it was discovered that there are receptors, then the next obvious question is, why are there receptors in the human brain for a smoke substance? How did God know that his creations will smoke marijuana?
Receptors are made for compounds that we produce, not because there is a plant out there.
And the answer obviously was that it's not for marijuana. There are some compounds in the body itself which mimic marijuana.
So we went ahead looking for endogenous compound. In my lab, there were 3 collaborators who contributed a lot in this research.
My name exactly is Lumír Ondřej Hanuš. When for socialism in Czechoslovakia, Professor Meshulam invited me. I'm here already 23 years.
23.
I came just for 1 year and it's a little bit extended. 1 year, it was not enough for research. We already had here postdoc Bill Devane, Dr. Bill Devane.
In the States, I go by Bill. In Ireland, I go by Will.
Okay, run over.
He used to come late in the afternoon and then work throughout the night. And Aviva Breuer, she worked with me in the lab for about 30 years. She still works with me in the lab. She used to come early in the morning. So sometimes they would meet here. If it was 5 o'clock in the morning, she would come in and he was just about to leave.
In 3.5 years, we never had a lab meeting.
Looking for the endogenous cannabinoid, a lot of brains were involved, not only brains of the researchers.
Well, we initially worked on brains of pigs. It is generally accepted that the organs of pigs and the organs of humans are somewhat closely related. And probably pigs and humans are also somehow closely related. Well, I'm not sure that the pigs will be very happy to be related to humans, but that's something else. So we wanted to work on pig brains. And the pig brains are not so easy to get in Jerusalem.
It's not kosher.
I took my car, Bill and I went to Tel Aviv, bought a few kilos of pig brain. The butcher thought that we are having a party. We were going to do something with it, cook the brain.
Each time when we came to buy it again, so price was higher. At the end, it was very expensive.
I got the brain and just made some fractions and put it over a silica sand column and separated a few fractions and tested them for how they bound to the receptor. And I thought, oh, it won't take long, you know?
I came just for 1 year, but after 1 year, with Bill, still we didn't have pure compound. So we asked Professor Meshulam to extend. Shalom.
A few other labs were already looking for compounds.
He thought we might be scooped by some other lab.
But we told him, just try it with us. We are very close.
And after about 2 years, we found in extremely low amounts
It was only like a few droplets in the end of a little test tube.
a compound in the brain which acts on these receptors.
And of course, as with every important discovery, no single lab usually has all the expertise. So Rafi was such a well-known figure in the field that he was able to put together a team of outstanding colleagues, including Roger Pertwee.
I'm professor of neuropharmacology at the University of Aberdeen.
Considered one of the top experts in cannabinoid receptor research.
But they then needed to see whether it behaved like we expect a cannabinoid to behave. So we just developed a new assay for doing that. So they sent me some anandamide, and we were able to show in our laboratory that it did behave like we would expect a cannabinoid receptor agonist to behave. We've had other collaborations since then, but that was very much the most exciting one.
We hadn't figured out the name of it yet, though.
The chemical name is arachidonoyl ethanolamine. We could have left it at that. We thought that maybe it has to do with mood, emotions, things of that sort, and therefore we thought, well, if it causes some kind of changes in emotion, maybe it causes happiness.
If you smoke marijuana, it gives you a certain bliss. So the natural compound also is responsible for that same type of a bliss, an internal bliss that you have, you know.
We looked for a good name, and although some people do not agree with me, but in Hebrew there are not too many names for happiness. For sorrow you can find a lot of names, but for happiness, not for extreme happiness. We've looked into Assyrian things, but the Assyrian things are more complicated. They call cannabis with apparently a lot of THC, they call it ganzigunu. Well, call the compound ganzigunu was too complicated. So we decided we'll go to something else.
I remember actually discussing the naming of this. I think it was Bill Devane who came up with the name. Is that right?
Right.
Rafi Musulam and Roger Pertwee and myself were all sitting outside in the sun, overlooking a nice little river. And 2 years before, I said to Rafi, if I isolate this chemical, I get to name it, don't I?
Bill was interested in these Sanskrit stories, and he found that Ananda is bliss, delight.
People who know me know that I study Eastern philosophy, and I know lots of Sanskrit words, you know.
Ananda means in Sanskrit supreme joy.
Professor Meshulam said, you know, it can be a good, it will be a part just on chemical nature of this compound, and because it's ethanol amide. So we did Ananda and amide, so it's anandamide.
Even in the print form of a dictionary, the Collins Unabridged English Dictionary, and I bought one for my sister and gave it to her, and it's in the dictionary. Anandamide.
Anandamide.
Yeah.
They made this discovery and published in this landmark paper, and its importance is illustrated very well by the fact that it's one of the very few papers in the biomedical literature that has been cited over 2,000 times since its publication.
They even don't cite it anymore because it's considered such a well-known thing, an obvious thing, that they don't even cite our work anymore. They mention anandamide does A and B and C. It turned out that there is a whole system in the body which is involved around anandamide, and this in many respects parallels important systems that the body relies upon them. And this system is called now the endocannabinoid system, and a huge number of researchers are involved in investigating this system from many aspects.
I'm a full professor of biochemistry.
The basis of my work was to understand how the nervous system works.
I usually go by Dr. Mary Abu.
The CB2 receptor is we're trying to discover how the world works, or in our case, how cannabinoids work and how the brain works.
Are there additional receptors? We know CB1, CB2 are receptors.
Again, you see a difference between the oral administration versus the smoked form, which is a very small.
In this model, we found that activation of CB2 was effective. Compound, which we haven't managed to isolate yet, but we strongly believe exists.
The endocannabinoid system is complex, it's very challenging.
If the animal, during the time-out period, is still pressing the lever, is because he has lost the control.
It's just perhaps not easy to describe, actually, how...
You know the beginning? No. It says, nel mezzo del cammin di nostra vita mi ritrovai per una selva oscura, che la dritta via era smarrita. How all of a sudden the poet found himself in a strange place, a black forest. Selva oscura is a black forest, and he was lost. But thanks to another poet, that is Virgilio, a famous Roman poet, he found a guide through the hell to the paradise then.
Yeah,
הרבה שנים עשיתי דווקא דברים טובים, הייתי מצלם מקרוב מאוד דברים, והם נראו מאוד מעניינים ויפים, אבל זה מה שאי אפשר לעשות הכל. אז זה מה שנשאר. Well, many years ago I had the time to play around with photography, but that was many years ago. Unfortunately, I don't have time for hobbies. אנחנו צריכים להתחיל לזוז. As scientists, indeed as intellectuals, we should try always to be skeptical.
So in 1995, you had an idea of testing THC on children.
It has been known for many years that cannabis can lower the effects of anti-cancer drugs. Anti-cancer drugs, many of them, cause terrible side effects. And in children, unfortunately, children get cancer as well. Children vomit and want to vomit, have nausea. They're really in a bad shape. And they cry all the time, and their parents are in a bad shape. Luckily, most of the children can be cured of the cancer, but the treatment is absolutely difficult. We wanted to do a clinical trial in children. And we did that with Professor Aya Avramov. She was head of the Department of Pediatric Oncology in one of the Jerusalem hospitals. And we did a major study with THC given in oily drops under the tongue of children. Obviously, children cannot smoke. We had children that were not even 1 year old. She dropped THC in olive oil under the tongue at 2 or 3 times a day, small doses, during the anti-cancer treatment. At the beginning, we wanted to do a double-blind study. Some of the children got the THC, some other children got only the olive oil. After a week, she told me, I'm not going ahead with that. I know exactly who is getting the THC. I know exactly who is not getting it. There was a complete separation. Those that didn't get it continued to vomit. So she went ahead doing an open study, and she gave THC, pure THC, under the tongue about 400 times, which means that those that were involved in the experiment got it every time they were treated with whatever they were being treated. And at the end, we saw that we had complete block of vomiting, complete block of nausea by small amount of THC, which did not cause any psychoactivity, nothing. So here we had a complete therapeutic effect. And we published that, and again, essentially nothing happened. Finito, that was it. It's still not being used in children.
And you think it's a good idea to use it for children?
Well, I believe it's an excellent idea because we help those children that suffer. But I have no influence on oncologists.
If there is a cancer patient who's got pain and that pain is not being controlled well by other kinds of drugs, they're on cancer chemotherapy, they're vomiting, I think it's unethical to withhold a drug from them that can be very useful to help them in their pain management and in their ability to cope with their disease.
In about 1999, he came up with a concept with Dr. Ben Shabbat of the entourage effect, the idea that there were many compounds, endogenous cannabinoids, some seemingly inactive on their own, but together they make this beautiful music. They create an entourage effect that greatly increases activity.
Rafi basically spoke to me about this entourage idea, And he made a very nice comparison, you know, like politicians, if they go alone to places, nobody pays them any importance. If they go accompanied by perhaps less active components, just the fact that the politician or the minister or the president is accompanied by many people makes it more important. So this is the entourage effect.
I feel that the same applies to the components of the cannabis plant itself. And so many of these are what are called minor cannabinoids, contribute to an overall effect that you cannot produce with a single molecule. This has been a key concept in what the work I've tried to do under his influence.
I was convinced that one should only test pure compounds with one target, whereas it's the combination sometimes of the compounds that can do the trick.
A very serious group of researchers has recently published a paper saying that the endocannabinoid system is involved in essentially all human diseases.
If you combine CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors, they cover most of the organism, at least in mammals.
We are mammals.
We are mammals.
Okay.
But when you talk of mammals, you talk of horses and dogs and mice and rats and rabbits and lions and...
We all share the endocannabinoid system.
I believe so. I believe so. And it has been demonstrated in many species.
Because now suddenly everyone has cannabis in their bodies, or everyone has a cannabinoid in their bodies, so it can't be bad.
These molecules that we all have are so critical from the birth to the death of each of us in health and disease.
He suggested that endocannabinoids in the milk of mothers actually may contribute to the hedonic effects of the milk. And it turned out to be almost true, actually. So he has a great vision. And then I know that he suggested to Itai Bab that he should look at the bone. Why would anybody in the world, actually, without preconception, look at bone development?
רגע. כמובן דש לדליה. We're going to my lab. We can go through the bigger entrance.
Or to the
small entrance here. My name is Professor Itai Bab. I am the director of the Bone Laboratory at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem.
We're going to see now the cannabinoids in bones?
Yes.
Okay.
So you do have a laboratory here.
You've been here. We have discovered the skeletal endocannabinoid system. These are osteoclast cultures. Osteoclasts are cells that break down bone.
Okay.
So she's analyzing the effect of cannabinoids on the number of osteoclasts. This is the growth engine, which is similar in mice and humans. You see here the brown cells, these are CB1 receptors, these are C receptors in the engine.
We've got a lot of research now going on because now we know there are CB1 and CB2 receptors in those kinds of cells that either help degrade the bone or help rebuild the bone. In this day and age, people are living, women beyond menopause, men well into old age, and we're going to have to think about how to preserve those bones so they can last another 40 years after menopause.
When a woman becomes pregnant, basically the body should get rid of the embryo because the embryo, to a certain extent, 50%, comes from a different organism from the father. The body doesn't do that. We don't know why the body doesn't do that. It's kind of a lowering of the immune system, certainly around the embryo. And it seems, it's quite possible, that the endocannabinoid system, in a wide sense of meaning, may be involved in prevention of this kind of immune effect, which is the basis of our life. I mean, obviously, if the embryo is kicked out, there's going to be no life on this planet.
Checking in then, sir. Yes. I need you to fill in all this here, okay? According to your whimsy.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. And where are you from, sir?
Israel.
Israel, oh. Well, that's very cool.
That's cool.
You know why?
Why?
Because the first guy to discover tetrahydrocannabinol was actually an Israeli man.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. שלום.
בא לחתום לנו למזכרת? הנה, אפילו הבנות רואות שאתה מתחיל להיות סלב כבר.
You are named as the grandfather of cannabis research or cannabis.
Well, I'm a
research.
grandfather of 7 grandchildren, and I'm very happy with them.
So you're not accepting the title, the grandfather of cannabis research.
We started research when essentially nobody was doing research. So if this is the grandfather, okay, so I'm a grandfather.
Por el claustro de la Universidad Complutense, a propuesta de la Facultad de Medicina y en testimonio del reconocimiento de vuestros relevantes méritos científicos, habéis sido nombrado doctor honoris causa. En virtud de la autoridad que me está conferida, os entrego dicho título.
Works on the ego. Obviously, people are happy to get an award, that people recognize their work. Definitely, I mean, it would be silly to say that I don't care. Yes, definitely I care, like anybody else.
Os impongo como símbolo el birrete laureado, antiquísimo y venerado distintivo del magisterio, llevadlo sobre vuestra cabeza como la corona de vuestros estudios y merecimientos.
I've received quite a few awards in different places in the world.
Recibid el libro de la ciencia que os cumple enseñar, difundir y adelantar, y que sea para vos significación y aviso de que por grande que sea vuestro ingenio fuere, debéis rendir acatamiento y veneración a la doctrina de vuestros maestros y predecesores.
In Israel, I got the Israel Prize, the Rothschild Prize, other prizes. Got important prizes in Germany, in the US. Had awards in the Czech state.
Recibid el anillo que la antigüedad entregaba en esta venerada ceremonia, como emblema del privilegio de firmar y de sellar los dictámenes, consultas y censuras de vuestra ciencia y profesión, así como los guantes blancos, símbolo de la pureza que deben conservar vuestras manos, uno y otros signos también de la distinción de vuestra categoría.
I've had honorary doctorates, one in Spain, one in the US, one in Israel.
Porque os habéis incorporado a esta universidad, recibid ahora, en nombre de su claustro, el abrazo de fraternidad de los que se honran y congratulan de ser vuestros hermanos y compañeros.
The National Institute of Health gave me an award recently. In 1962, I had asked for a grant from NIH, but NIH wrote me back, well, the topic you're interested in, namely the constituents of cannabis sativa, is not a relevant topic for the US. It's not used in the US. when you have something more relevant, ask us for a grant. So a year later, I got a phone call from one of the main pharmacologists of the National Institute of Mental Health, said he's interested in cannabis. So all of a sudden they had a change of mind. So I asked them, what happened? Well, apparently somebody high up, an important person, maybe a senator, had called NIH and asked, what does cannabis do? It seems that his son had been caught smoking pot.
What? Yes, it's the truth, Father. And I'm pretty ashamed of it.
And he wanted to know whether the marijuana destroys his mind. Now, they didn't know anything about marijuana, and the only thing that they actually knew was that a young person from the Middle East had asked for a grant and was working on it. So pharmacologists came over and asked me, are you still working? I said, yes, we had just identified the active compound, and we had a large amount of the active stuff there. We had about 10 grams of THC. So he said, please give us the 10 grams and we'll do a lot of pharmacology in the US. So he got the world supply of THC. Nobody had THC at that time. Got the world supply of THC, took it to the US. Actually, he probably smuggled it because I don't think that he had a license, so he could take it to the US. But then, of course, nobody was looking for THC. It was not a known compound. So he took it to NIH, and for the next couple of years, most of the research in the US on THC was done with material supplied by us, those grams that they took. And for many years, nearly 40, 45 years, I was supported financially by the National Institute of Health. And they never interfered with my research.
The cannabinoid field was starting to really come online, and there was this big connection with endogenous cannabinoids and exogenous cannabinoids and pain. My PhD was in female reproductive pain. It's just really fun to be at this point of going, wow, we're actually, understanding some of the mechanism of why women basically have taken cannabis for thousands of years for reproductive pain.
I would consider myself still as a mouse geneticist and neurobiologist. So our approach is to make mutant animals. So almost every talk that you hear contains some data that were generated with the mice that we made.
You get seniority if death you can't avoid. The lab was up to me. I chose cannabinoids. Heard it's a fun house where a little lab mouse can partake.
For several years, I was researching motor neuron disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and was able to show that THC was actually protective in a mouse model of ALS. The mice that were given THC lived a little longer and did a little better than the ones that did not get treated with THC. So that was really exciting work.
Pass that new compound over to me, Doc. Then I'll swim around. You can punch the clock.
Work on mice has been done in so many areas that I normally joke, saying that if I were a mouse, I can be treated for just about every disease around. Well, it is partly true.
I ain't cynical, life's a clinical trial for mouse or man.
Anandamide and 2-AG, although they were discovered almost 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, they have never been administered to a human. So we speak about mice. Well, mice are nice animals, but they are definitely not humans.
Let me nibble your cannabis-roll. Just let me nibble your cannabis-roll.
Obviously, mice can be treated with cannabinoids for cancer. Mice can be treated for all kinds of other diseases, which in humans, the answer is no, it has not been tested.
Can cannabis cure cancer?
Well, first of all, we know that THC lowers the effects of cancer treatment. But what you're asking is it an anti-cancer drug? And the answer is, I don't know. And the reason for that is silly. It has been tested in the test tube. THC has been tested, cannabidiol, crude cannabis has been tested in the test tube, and yes, in many cases, it blocks the development of cancer cells, yes. Professor Guzman is a major researcher in Spain. He has worked on the mechanisms through which cannabinoids act on cancer.
In our hands, classical cannabinoids are the ones that work best, by large, in inducing cell death in cancer cells.
THC comes from cannabis or comes from synthetic?
THC coming from cannabis. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's THC, the real THC. Now we know that cannabinoids can exert anti-tumor actions in animals, not only in brain tumors, but in many different types of tumors. We know that cannabinoids act not only by inducing cell death through that specific mechanism called apoptosis, but we know that cannabinoids can tackle other processes of cancer cell growth, such as angiogenesis, metastasis, cell cycle, etc.
He even did a small clinical trial.
We did a trial with 9 volunteers that had a very malignant form of brain cancer, glioblastoma multiforme, and we observed some positive effects of cannabinoids in survival of the patients and also on tumor growth, based both on imaging techniques, magnetic resonance imaging, and also based on the measurement of some biomarkers of tumor progression.
Though we have done quite a lot in the field of cannabinoids and endocannabinoids, we have not done enough in clinical trials. This is something that has to be done. If this is not done, we will certainly miss a lot and we will not be helping human patients. It should be done. I have one dream that comes on and off in very different ways. I'm in a city that I don't know, and I don't know how to go back to the hotel I'm staying, and I don't remember the name of the hotel, and I get into an anxiety and I wake up. And this has happened many, many times. So I think it has to do with whatever happened in the Second World War, when my parents told me, remember these names and these addresses, because if we disappear, you should go there. Which is, well, not very pleasant, which is quite a shock, probably to a child. And of course, we were very afraid that we'll be separated, my parents and I. I was afraid. I now remember more than I did over the many, many years that have passed since then. All the people, they start remembering things that happened in their childhood. At one point, somebody decided that it is worthwhile testing cannabis with relatively high doses of THC, I believe, in people that are Alzheimer or Alzheimer-like patients. They got it in their food, in the yogurt or whatever. Some of them, I believe, not all of them, but some of them were in a better shape. Some of them started speaking, their eyes became brighter. In one case, an ex-writer started writing again. In another case, a woman said, I feel fine, and went home. So it seems to be helping the symptoms of Alzheimer or senility.
Not left.
Alzheimer at the moment is a huge, huge problem, and there is very little that can be done for Alzheimer patients. So maybe if it is well researched in the future, we should know how to help these patients. We're dealing here with population of millions, and this population will grow because in most countries, Western countries at least, the number of older people is growing all the time. We are lucky that cannabis is not toxic. People do not die from overdose of cannabis.
Most appropriately for a cannabinoid meeting, we're ending on a high, really, in the form of a talk by Rafi Meshulam, who's of course the father of modern cannabinoid research, no doubt about that.
And I would like to end with something that's really crazy speculation.
Each one of us has a different personality, and we have no idea why. Why do we have different personalities? Well, part of it is the effect of the environment, okay? But part of it is genetic, and we don't know why we have different personalities. One way of explaining it is there are several hundred compounds, endocannabinoid-like compounds. They are like anandamide in their chemical structure that are present in the brain, and it is quite possible that each one of us has a different, slightly different level of these compounds. This is genetic. This is based on the different DNA of everybody, but DNA doesn't affect the personality. It is the compounds that are formed from DNA through RNA to proteins and peptides and secondary compounds. So it is quite possible that differences in the endocannabinoid system and the cannabinoid-like system can have something to do with the different personalities. Well, that's a very complicated story, but it may work.
I went to a mathematician and told him, look, I believe that there are 8 billion people on this planet, and I believe that there are 8 billion different personalities. Is it possible that the 200 compounds that we have may be involved? He said, of course, there are so many possibilities that the ratios of 10 of these to 10 of others and so on will cause that. This is a crazy speculation, but at some point we'll have to find the biochemical basis of why we are different. Many years ago, when I had an administrative position in my university, I was rector, I was told never give an after-dinner speech before the dinner. And I sincerely apologize for doing so now.
He used to get the hash from the police, and we used to chop it up in the lab.
It's 555 nanometers, and it's the healthiest for your eyes. This is from cannabis. If you are in the nature green, it's the healthier.
Yes.
It's 555 nanometers.
Popular media is very powerful and very convincing. We should try to go to the basis of these media presentations and be convinced that the facts support the conclusions. This is true for every sphere of life and certainly for every scientific area. And I want to thank many of my collaborators. We've drank coffee many, many times. I believe that the next paper will be drinking coffee as a scientific method, and
So if Viagra can get the Nobel Prize, why not pot?
Ready? Go.
Something that you make your salad in.
Oh, bowl.
You pull them out of your garden. They're bad.
Weed.
It's a little sort of vermin that crawls around your kitchen. You don't want them.
Ants. A roach.
The low road.
The high road.
Skinny. Opposite of skinny.
Fat? Fatty.
It's something that you roll like sushi.
Oh, a joint.
And it's the country code for the Czech Republic.
420, baby.
Ladies?
Bake Off, I'll give.
All right, describe for Betty these things in a bakery. Things in a bakery.
Okay,
Ready, go.
Okay, a little chocolate chip cookie. Okay, Jewish donut.
Bagel.
It's white and you make pastry with it.
Cream.
Wheat, whole wheat.
Bread.
You sift it.
It's flour.
Okay. A bread.
A loaf.
Okay, a little chocolate with nuts in it. It has marijuana in it sometimes.
Brownie?
Yes.
Not
okay,
my
an English.
Muffin.
Yes. Cream pie. It's
Oh, chiffon was the word we're looking for. 19 to 14, ladies. I'll talk to you about your recipes a little later on.
Let's move on to question 2. Give me Quaylon. Give me Melissa. Did I pronounce it right? Is it Quaylon?
It's Quaylon.
Quaylon. Good. How old are you, Quaylon?
16.
Good. Welcome to the show. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. Top 8 answers on the board. Give me a slang term that people use for marijuana. Melissa.
Weed.
Weed. Pass or play? They're gonna play. Glad you didn't know that one. Jeff, give me a slang term that people use for marijuana.
I don't know this from experience, but I've heard it said a lot. Pot.
Michelle, give me a slang term that people use for marijuana.
My stash.
My stash. Grandma's stash. Only one strike, John.
I have heard it called reefer.
Reefer. Okay. I don't know how that ain't up there. I don't know who they was talking to, but I don't know how reefer ain't up there. That's virtually impossible. I don't know what city this was in. Mike, give me a slang term that people use for marijuana.
A joint.
A joint. Melissa, 2 strikes. Be careful, Davis family can steal. Give me a slang term that people use for marijuana.
I am going to say grass.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer.
Grass. Jeff, give me a slang term that people use for marijuana.
I hate to give this because it makes me sound incriminating, but I'm going to say dime bag. Yeah! I've heard it. I don't know. Good answer. Good answer. I don't know what it means.
Shut up, Jeff. Just shut up.
I swear.
In order for you to even say dime bag, you have to be a user.
I swear.
I know you swear, but I don't know how. You done broke it down. Let me ask you a question. What is a dime bag, Jeff?
I have no idea.
Yes, you
no,
do.
I swear. I don't know.
What do you think it means, Jeff?
It's a Ziploc bag with marijuana in it.
How much? How much?
$10.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The dime bag. Shanita, give me a slang term that people use for marijuana.
Ready?
Yeah.
Blunt.
Oh, okay. A blunt. Number 8. 7. 6. 3. Anatello's 126. Davis not on board, but the goal is 300 points.
Rachel, what's your first subject?
How about slow your roll?
Here we go. Rachel, describe for Kristen things that get rolled.
Things that get what?
Things that get rolled.
Oh, just like in the title. Okay. Okay.
Here we go. You have
Okay.
30 seconds on the clock.
Okay.
Ready? Go.
Oh, this is, you're playing a game. They have cubes. Jacks, dice. Yeah. This is these. Ice. Yes. This is these. Sleeves. Yes. This is, you need. Dough. Yes. This is, you crack a yolk and white. Egg. Yeah. This is, you go and to an alley. Yes. Yeah. Bowling. Oh, bowling ball. It's bowling ball. Yeah. This is, you smoke a pot. Cigarette. Pot. Weed. No, pot. This is a elbow joint. Yes. That was awesome. It's also a part of your elbow. It is.
You know, most people probably would have started with that one and finished with that one. You went straight to the point.
All right, guys, here we go. We got the top 6 answers on the board. Name something that gets passed around. Chris.
A joint.
A joint.
Can I leave?
Yeah. Now, Chris, I don't know what 100 people you thought we were talking to at some nice little mall across good old America, but I'm pretty sure the people didn't tell the survey people, hey, an illegal drug. Let's turn around and see how many weed heads are out there with Chris. A joint. This is when you know we're going to hell. Okay, Tracy, only 4 answers top it, so.
The collection plate at church.
Now she's got the halo and I got the horns.
I like the way you tried to stop us from going to hell. You, Mr. You evil boy, passing around the little thing with this funny smell. Looking for some saving here. Church plate. Oh. It's less than the joint. This is not good. I'm just gonna you just go over there. They're gonna play this.
Yes, we are.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Truth About Cancer Global Health News. I'm Charlene Bollinger, and this is Ty Bollinger.
Thanks for reminding them of our names, honey, because I'm in a very forgetful mood today. I almost forgot my name. I know you didn't forget your names, but we're glad that you know our names. We bring you the Global Health News as many times as we possibly can.
Yes.
Hopefully at least twice a month, lately sometimes more. We're really focusing lately on the truth about pet cancer, which is coming up here shortly.
Yes.
So that's been kind of cutting into our filming schedule, but we're glad to get you this episode, some fantastic and really kind of mind-boggling some of these articles that we're going to deal with.
Unbelievable. Let's just get started on the first one.
So here's article number 1 today. The title of the article is, After a Rough Season, FDA Chief Gottlieb says Holy Grail flu shot is years off. So what is it? Number 1, after a rough season. So what are they talking about here, rough season?
So we've had a bad season, but eventually all of you are going to take this flu shot?
Well, they're not talking about baseball, so it's not a baseball season. It's not football. It's flu season. And basically in this article, which is a fiercepharma.com article, the FDA chief says that they've had a hard time, the CDC and the FDA have had a hard time with this flu season. In other words, they're saying that the flu vaccine is not really all that effective. And it's amazing to get that out of them, to get them to admit that.
Well, there have been so many credible articles written and news reports and science behind the fact that these flu vaccines really aren't fighting the flu.
Yeah.
In fact, in some cases, it seems that they're perpetuating it, causing it.
Well, I mean,
the flu outbreaks are with the people that had the vaccine.
Yeah, ask yourself, if you're sitting there, look in the mirror and say, self, who do I know this year, trying to be funny here, who do I know this year that has the flu? And between Charlene and myself and our family, I honestly can't count the number of people that have said, I got the flu vaccine and then I got the flu.
Oh, yes.
So most of the people that got the flu got it after they got the vaccine. So,
and we haven't had the vaccine and no one in our family has had the flu.
No. So, and most people that you'll ask that have not had the vaccine have not had the flu in maybe decades. But so they're admitting that the flu vaccine is not working. So their goal with this universal holy grail flu shot is to have a flu vaccine that's not cultured in eggs. And they're saying that the reason that the flu vaccine is not really all that effective, which they're admitting it's not effective now, but we know going all the way back to the 2006 Cochrane collaboration that determined that the flu shot in infants and the elderly, which is the two biggest groups that it's pushed on, is a big old fat goose egg. Speaking of eggs, goose egg, 0% effective in infants and the elderly. That's
not acceptable.
It's not acceptable, and that's what the Cochrane collaboration of 2006 said, was that it does not work. So we've known that it doesn't work for a long time. They're just now admitting that it doesn't work, but they're saying, well, the reason it doesn't work is that it's cultured in eggs. We're going to get a universal flu vaccine that isn't cultured in eggs, and so therefore it's more effective at these different strains of flu. And they're admitting the flu vaccine's not effective because there's different strains of flu that mutate, and because of the fact that it takes a while between the time that it's cultured and the time that we get the flu vaccine out, well, we've been telling them that for years, that it's not effective because the flu.
Well, one excuse after another, it doesn't add up. And as far as we've researched and seen, the flu vaccine really causes more harm than it helps. The big concern here, I believe, is not only do they have a big fail on this flu vaccine this season and even going back to 2006 to the Cochrane report, my concern as a mother and a friend of yours out there and so many people is that they want everybody on planet Earth eventually to take a flu vaccine, which a lot of people have religious and philosophical reasons to opt out of the flu shot. The ingredients are, some would say, an abomination when you have aborted fetal tissue in there. You have tissue from various animals, and we can name so many others.
Well, you have not only tissue from animals, you have retroviruses now that they discovered in flu vaccine and other vaccines from animal cell lines. And not only that, but you've also got formaldehyde, you've got heavy metals like mercury and aluminum. And we know that if you're taking a flu vaccine, which they're pushed on mothers, if you're pregnant, get the flu vaccine. And if you're a mother and you get the flu vaccine that's a multivalent or a multi-dose vaccine, not multivalent, but multi-dose flu vaccine, then we know, based upon the calculations that we perform for the Truth About Vaccines, that there is 600 times the amount of mercury in that flu shot.
And that's a neurotoxin.
Than the EPA allows. They call it toxic waste, and that is 600 times the amount of toxic waste.
And so what is this doing not only to the mother but the baby? And I can tell you, as a mother 4 times over, while the baby is in utero growing, every cell of that baby is bathed in the health or the lack of the health of the mother. So if the mother is full of toxins or being pumped full of toxins, where does it go? It goes straight to the baby. The baby takes everything. So if you're healthy, it's taking the health. If you are not healthy and you're full of toxins, it's going right to the baby. So the neurotoxic mercury content of this shot is potentially deadly in the long run, causing so many problems to the baby, and the brain-blood barrier is not really complete. So these neurotoxins go straight to the brain. So that's what's happening to the baby in utero. That's very concerning. So we just want to let you know We appreciate you joining us. We appreciate you sharing everything that we do, because our goal is to maintain your medical freedom, our children's medical freedom. In fact, we're soon going to celebrate Charity's birthday, sweet little girl. We love her. We love all of our children, and we know you love your children too. So we do this for our children and for you. We need to maintain our medical freedom and not be forced to take what we believe is not healthy for our families.
Yeah, that's right, honey. I mean, it's really about medical freedom, and a forced vaccine is never free, right? It's not. It's antithetical to medical freedom, and we just want medical freedom. We'll never take a forced vaccine, and we won't allow our family to. And there's millions and tens of millions of Americans that will never do that. So good luck trying that, FDA. It won't work.
And Ty, my other question is this. If vaccines are so safe and effective, first of all, if they're safe, why do they mandate and force us to take those against our will? Secondly, if they're effective, why do we have to be vaccinated if they're effective for the ones that are vaccinated?
Good question.
Can you answer that?
No, well, they can't answer it either. That's why they obfuscate and change direction. We're going to channel Nancy Reagan here for the vaccines. Just say no. Just say no.
There you go.
So the next FDA article next on the list today, FDA approves first direct-to-consumer test for breast cancer risk. So you've seen the 23andMe and all these different genetic testing sites. Nothing wrong with them. It's good. It's good. There's certain things that are really beneficial that you can learn. But one of the things that they're pushing through these genetic testing is that you can determine if you have BRCA1, BRCA2 genes, which allegedly increases your risk for breast cancer. Now, there's a couple problems with that. Name one problem with that, honey.
Cancer is not genetic.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Right? So in The Truth About Pet Cancer, we got several interviews, and the biggest name that talks about that is Dr. Thomas Seyfried, a Boston College professor, a biology professor at Boston College.
Great explanation, too. Wow.
Yeah, and he said, look, the problem is, even Watson, IBM's Watson, can't solve the complex riddle of cancer because we're giving him the wrong inputs, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Everyone is studying cancer as a genetic disease. And the problem, the reason we're not making much progress is it's not a genetic disease. I mean, if you look at the website of the American Cancer Society, there's a PDF document called Cancer Facts and Figures. You can go download it right now, and in that document it says that only about 10 to 15% of cancers are genetic, and the other 85% is caused to is a result of lifestyle choices and environmental toxicity. So we see that even the main oncological organizations in the USA don't really believe that it's genetic, but we're all studying it as a genetic disease, and so that's where one of the reasons we're not making much progress. And what Charlene mentioned is really important, and this is one of the points that Dr. Seyfried, Dr. Ian Billinghurst from Australia bring out in The Truth About Pet Cancer, is that there's mitochondrial damage universally when it comes to cancer. And all cancers are the same, they believe. And I think there's a good scientific basis for that. Mitochondrial damage results in genetic damage. And Dr. Mercola spoke about that as well. I still remember his interview. He's like, and that is what people are studying is the cause of cancer, but it's really a result. The genetic damage is a result of mitochondrial damage. So they're studying the wrong thing. You'll get a lot more about that in The Truth About Pet Cancer.
Yes, it's fantastic. Wow, I can't wait to give that to our friends out there.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why the genetic testing for cancer, it's really, it's futile at this point, because we see people,
That's not the cause. It's a result of something going wrong in the body.
And we see preventative type surgeries like Angelina Jolie having a preventative double mastectomy because she's BRCA1 positive and she thinks that she might get cancer. So instead of using nutrition to act as an epigenetic switch, right? Nutrigenomics, changing your diet, changing your lifestyle, minimizing toxicity, detoxifying, whatever it might be. These are all epigenetic switches that can override the expression of DNA. Instead of recommending that, the American Cancer Society says just have a prophylactic double mastectomy. So that way you'll never get breast cancer if you don't have breasts.
In some cases, women are even removing ovaries and such. And what happens when you do all these surgeries is not only are you mutilating your body, but also you're interrupting your hormonal system in your body, and that sets you up for disease right there.
Yeah, sure. Hormone imbalance is at the root of many different disorders, and I believe that's one of the root causes of cancer as well. And in no way are we poking fun at people that have had double mastectomies or ovaries removed, because that's what you're told. That's what the professionals tell you is necessary. So in no way is this poking fun. This is just...
It's very serious.
We're trying to bring light to the fact that you're not being told that there are things that you can do, there are lifestyle choices that you can make
powerful
that will override that genetic expression.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's
Make
why...
it work for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why this, breast cancer screening risk through this genetic testing, and if you're BRCA1, or if your genes say that you've got the BRCA1 or BRCA2 gene, then maybe you should have a double mastectomy. We say, just say no. Two. And I wasn't even planning that, but that's two. Just say no, according to us. That's our position.
And if you want to screen thermography, go get a thermogram, and that will be your best choice of breast cancer screening.
Yeah, thermograms just measure the heat in any tissue. And speaking of the truth about pet cancer, we got some live footage of a thermogram being conducted on a pet, on a dog.
There are some amazing vets out there doing cutting edge stuff for our pets, and they're healing them. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So that's a great testing if you are worried about breast cancer.
What about a mammogram?
Mammograms are not all that great because, number one, they detect cancer much later than thermography, and number two, it's ionizing radiation on the breast. And let's see, what's one of the effects of radiation?
It causes cancer.
You mentioned thermography.
Yes.
Are those superior to mammograms, which is the typical way that we detect breast cancer?
Well, let's start with mammograms. Again, by the time they see a lump on a mammogram, it's taken 5 to 8 years to develop. And if a woman follows the 10-year protocol of getting a mammogram every year or every 6 months, she is getting as much radiation as a woman had at Hiroshima, the atomic bomb, if she stood a mile away from the epicenter. She's getting over 5 rads of radiation in a mammogram if she follows the traditional methods of mammography. So mammograms cause a lot of problems. The compression, the radiation, the studies have shown that they can increase your risk of cancer. And the newest study that came out in Canada, it was a 25-year study where they found that mammograms did not decrease breast mortality rate at all. In fact, they were just as effective as a self-breast exam that women do. So if we put mammograms aside and we look at the technology with thermography, which has been around for years and can detect physiological changes at a very early stage, wouldn't you rather know that there's possibly some changes going on in your breast or in your abdomen 5 to 8 years before you have a diagnosis? And with thermography, there's no pain, there's no compression, there's no radiation. It's just a beautiful tool to have in your pocket.
Wow. So it's not only less invasive, but it works better. It detects earlier.
Absolutely.
So why are not every doctor's office, why does not every doctor's office, let me repeat that. So why does every doctor that's trying to detect breast cancer switch from mammography to thermography? Why is there this hitch in the giddy up, as we say in Texas?
Well, that brings us to the multi-billion-dollar cancer industry, and mammograms are part of that. I mean, you look at the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I mean, they're not teaching women about true prevention, but they're running women to having more mammograms. And to change that around is going to take some time and some persuasion and some education, which in the 10 years that I've used thermography, I've seen a tremendous growth in that industry. And again, it's awareness and education.
So we don't want to screen with something that might cause the disease we're screening for.
And another thing, ladies, the whole process of coming in there and squishing the breast tissue, if you happen to have a tumor and it happens to be cancerous, that may very well push it to the brink of maybe puncturing it.
It can rupture.
And then that could then spread the cancer, and that is when the cancer becomes dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just, there are better options, and thermography is right at the top of the list.
No invasive
cancer
procedure.
Way earlier, and all you're doing is just measuring heat. It's very non-invasive. Okay, next article. This is from medicalexpress.com. One-off PSA screening for prostate cancer does not save lives. So they're admitting that the PSA test isn't really saving lives. There's some problems with the PSA test.
So who's admitting that?
Journal of the American Medical Association.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And
so JAMA is admitting that the PSA test.
How recent?
This is like March 2018. This is like right now.
So what are they going to do with that, Ty?
Well, the problem with the PSA test is that the PSA stands for, if you don't know, prostate-specific antigen. And the problem with the PSA test is that prostate-specific antigen is not necessarily prostate-specific, because women have PSA levels as well.
Right. And I don't have a prostate, honey.
You don't have a prostate?
No.
No, women don't have prostates, but they have PSAs. So it's not necessarily a measure of anything that's prostate-specific. It's kind of a misnomer. It's what it is. It's a measure of inflammation in the body, and it might be a sign of prostate cancer, but it might not. And it might be a sign of some other kind of cancer in women, but it might not. The problem is, if the typical procedure for a male in the United States, at least, is if you have an elevated PSA, then maybe they go in and they biopsy. And most men over the age of 60 have some sort of prostate cancer, but most of them are very, very slow growing. And about 97%, I think, or maybe it's 99% of the men that have prostate cancer will never die from it. It rarely takes, there's some aggressive ones, but it's not common. But what you do is, if you biopsy a man that has an elevated PSA, you biopsy and he happens to have prostate cancer, which many men do when they're elderly, you'll spread it. The biopsy actually will spread it. It will what's called seeding the cancer into the bloodstream.
You open up that little place and spread those cells
And
that
so
were contained otherwise.
You've basically taken a cancer that's self-contained and you've caused it to spread or metastasize.
And move around and do a happy dance all over your body while you're not going to be doing a happy dance as a result.
Right. So it's just PSA. We wrote about this in Cancer Step Outside the Box a long time ago. Was that 12 years ago now that we published that book?
Yes.
So we wrote about that in the first edition. The PSA test is not prostate specific, and it doesn't necessarily detect cancer. So again, this is just another one of the screening procedures that the oncologists are using to detect cancer. That's not really all that great at detecting cancer and might actually spread the cancer. So just watch out for PSAs.
What screening would you suggest, Ty, for that?
Well, there's a lot of different Navarro urine tests. There's AMAS tests. There's probably about a half dozen different tests that we've written about. So there are many different natural types of screening procedures to early detect not only prostate cancer but many types of cancer. And again, I think this goes back to the fundamental thesis that cancer is the same no matter where it manifests. So we have certain procedures that are used to detect breast cancer or prostate cancer or ovarian cancer or uterine cancer or pancreatic cancer. And we think that, well, this only works for this one type of cancer, but the reality is cancer results from damaged mitochondria that then results in DNA damage, and they're basically all the same. The respiration's changed, cancer cells become anaerobic, they ferment sugar. So there's a lot of different generic testing that will work on almost any type of cancer because it measures different cancer markers that are in the blood. Okay, 3 ways to detox with iodine.
Ooh, iodine. I love iodine.
Yeah, iodine's awesome, and so we've Organics just launched Organics Iodine.
Yeah, and I'm pretty excited about that. I have been taking it and personally love it.
About 97% of people in the United States are iodine deficient. Iodine's a mineral.
It's not really in our food.
It's not in the food. No, you're right. In the late 70s, they took iodine out of the bread. They started putting in bromine. People think, well, I get enough iodine for my salt because I get iodized salt, but that's not a good form of iodine.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bioavailable. The iodine that Organics just launched is nascent iodine, but it's a supplement that everybody is deficient in, and we should be taking every day. It reduces cysts. It reduces abnormal cell growth that's benign, it's not cancerous, and iodine.
It helps your thyroid and your hormonal system.
Yeah, exactly. It helps with the thyroid, and most people are aware of iodine back from 2011, 2012 when Fukushima happened.
Yes.
And the United States just universally, there was no more potassium iodide. People bought it because we knew that radioactive iodine was coming over from Fukushima, Japan, and we wanted to fill our thyroid with good iodine, and so that's an emergency iodine. Potassium iodide, you should not use it over a couple of weeks at a time. But this iodine, nascent iodine, is something you should be taking every day. It's great for kids, great for adults, great for pets. You can drop it on the pet food. You can put it in their water. Doesn't taste. And so it's just a great source of iodine, a mineral that in which we're all deficient. So 3 ways to detox with iodine. People don't really think of iodine as being a detoxification agent, but it is. It actually binds to heavy metals like mercury, even better than chlorella or spirulina. And we think of chlorella, cilantro, not spirulina, chlorella and cilantro bind to heavy metals. Iodine works even better than that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So it can detox your body from halides, which is bromine, fluoride, chlorine. That's the halogen family, and that's one of the problems with fluoride in the water, is the receptors, the halogen receptors in your cells. They see fluoride and they think, well, that's iodine, because they look alike and they're very similarly shaped.
So they
go into the receptor, and then your receptor site's full and you can't intake good iodine. So that's why one of the reasons it's just important to supplement with nascent iodine. It chelates heavy metals like mercury. That's number 2 on this list. And this is an article that we wrote here at The Truth About Cancer. And then number 3, it boosts your liver and your kidneys naturally. So that's 3 different ways that iodine helps to detoxify your body.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's something that you should be incorporating into your nutritional regimen every day.
And organics, that's an organic form of iodine and the best form that I've ever seen.
Yeah, nascent iodine. It's organic. It's USDA certified organic. And you might be thinking, well, I can get enough iodine from seaweed, from kelp, and it's a good source. But a lot of it you got to watch out because it's radioactive if it's from the Pacific.
I keep thinking of the kids, the radioactive song, Imagine Dragons, radioactive. Every time he says that, I've been hanging with the kids lately. Radioactive.
Get that. Repeat that into a meme over and over. Anyway, but so the best source is going to be some form of nascent organic iodine, and so that's why we love the organics iodine.
Yes.
So great source of iodine to fill your thyroid, keep you healthy, helps to detoxify heavy metals, and when you detoxify your body, when you give it the minerals that it needs, it works the way it's supposed to.
It does, and our bodies were created to heal.
Yeah.
You give it the right thing, and it really will heal. If you're inflamed, you have joint pain, all these things are signs that something's going wrong.
Yeah.
Inflammation is a big, hello, wake up and do something.
Yeah. And Dr. Edward Group always talks about how we need to activate the body's self-healing mechanism. That's one of his favorite phrases, and he's so right.
Ed Group is great.
Ed Group is awesome. He's one of our good buddies.
Yeah.
In The Truth About Cancer Live, we've interviewed him. He's in The Truth About
And he's so
Pet Cancer
passionate.
coming.
When we did the last live event, he was out there with many of you, just spent his entire days out there talking to you, answering questions, and loving on you guys, and we just love him.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and I did an interview with Ed about iodine specifically.
Yeah, that's a good one. If you haven't caught it, you need to
check it out.
that.
You can get a link to it, I'm sure, on The Truth About Cancer, the benefits of iodine. Ed's awesome.
After listening to him, you'll really thoroughly understand why it's necessary to supplement with iodine, and you'll run to do what you can to make it happen for you and your family. He's so motivational. He talked about water fasting. Just on a side note, I totally want to do this water fast.
And if she decides to do a 40-day water fast, she can do it by herself, because I'm not doing it.
Well,
No
I'm
way.
going to
I
work
can't
out
do
to the
40-day
40-day. I
water
might do a
fast.
3-day sometime, but eventually, I maybe in a year or two.
Why is iodine so important? Because it activates the body's self-healing mechanism. Thank you, Dr. Group.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody out there, for watching this episode of Global Health News. We really appreciate you. Please share this with all your friends, and we'll have another episode coming your way in just a couple of weeks.
Yes.
God bless.
Thank you. Mwah. Hi, this is Charlene and Ty with The Truth About Cancer. Tonight we're really excited about episode 5. We're going to bring you to my local dentist. When I met him, Dr. Tom, talking to him, he was a biological dentist, I realized he is so knowledgeable. We need to get Ty in here and with our camera crew and film him. So we're going to talk to an amazing biological dentist, and you will not believe what he's going to teach you. Right, Ty?
Yeah, it's the relationship that the mouth has to cancer, and root canals and other things that we are so frequently inundated with toxic dentistry, like mercury and fluoride. We learn about the connection of those two toxic chemicals to cancer. We're also going to learn about vaccinations and the link vaccines have to cancer in episode number 5. And so one of the things that's going to be really interesting about this episode is we're going to link all of these separate chemicals to causing cancer. We're also going to discuss the emotional aspect that cancer has. There's so much that is unknown about cancer, or is not taught about cancer, and one of those areas is the vital impact that our emotions play on treating cancer and even beating cancer. And finally, in episode 5, we're going to travel to the United Kingdom, and we're going to learn about homeopathy from a lady there that's now a homeopath, and she cured what was supposedly terminal brain cancer 20 years ago using homeopathy. She's been very successful at it, of course, because she's alive 20 years later. And another interesting topic in tonight's show is the link that the spine has to cancer. You know, many people don't understand that a properly aligned spine is essential to being healthy, and that many people, one of the first things that they've done to treat their cancer naturally is to get their spine aligned. We actually interviewed an allegedly terminal cancer patient. I say allegedly because he was told that he was terminal, but he's alive many years later. The first thing he did was properly align his spine, and he's alive to tell his story. And another interesting topic, this is a very interesting episode number 5. Perhaps you've heard of Operation Paperclip. The United States actually brought over Nazi war criminals after World War II that were actually convicted at the Nuremberg trials, brought them over to run some of our pharmaceutical companies. You're going to learn about that in tonight's episode as well. Question for you. You mentioned aspartame.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it in the same sense as you mentioned chemicals. So
Right.
is aspartame a chemical? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. Aspartame is a very toxic chemical. When it's metabolized, it breaks down into things like wood alcohol, formaldehyde. Aspartate itself is an excitotoxin in the brain. So it is a chemical derivative. In fact, I don't know the whole story, but I heard it was actually developed as a military weapon. And so I'm not the expert on that, but that's what I heard. However, it just really has delirious effects in the body. It's been linked to several different forms of cancer, and it's definitely something that we want to avoid.
So in your anti-cancer diet, you get people on, you would prefer them if they want to sweeten their food or to sweeten a drink or something. Just because something's a low-calorie sweetener is what you're saying, it doesn't mean that it's bad.
Yeah.
There are good ones and there are bad ones. And so the good ones, you mentioned stevia, which is an herb, which is actually 100 times sweeter than sugar.
Exactly, yep. So we want to avoid aspartame, Splenda, ace-fultane potassium, these really chemical sounding names. And we want to use like pure leaf stevia, okay? So stevia, minimally processed form of stevia as possible, and perhaps xylitol. Now we do want to avoid highly processed forms of stevia, particularly, there's certain brands out there that combine stevia with things like GMO erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol that comes from corn, right? And oftentimes there's combinations where it's a genetically modified form of corn to produce this erythritol. That would clearly be something we'd want to avoid. Yeah, anti-cancer diet, we definitely have got to avoid chemicals, GMOs, as much as possible, because those things will just cause these inflammatory reactions that lead to cancer development in our body.
Okay. So you mentioned highly processed.
Yeah.
Would it be safe to say that if you go into the grocery store and you open up or you pick up a box and you're reading the ingredients and it's got 50 ingredients and you can't pronounce 45 of them, you're probably going to be wanting to avoid something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. If something sounds like a chemical, or if it was made in a lab somewhere, it probably was. So absolutely we want to avoid that. We're looking for whole food-based sources. When it comes to foods and supplements, we want to be keen on what we're putting into our body. Just like somebody who values, let's say, their automobile, they're going to be keen on what kind of oil gets put in there, what kind of fuel gets put in there. It's the same thing with our body. We want to know exactly what's going in there. So for myself, I don't eat anything that I don't know exactly is what the ingredients are that's actually going into that. And if it's not something that's natural, I'm going to avoid it.
Good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
If it ain't natural, don't eat it.
I can't say that I developed that.
I like it.
There's a lot more smarter people than me that came up with that. But yeah, it's a good slogan we should all have.
We both look like unicorns.
I know.
How cute.
I love it. I'm Nally, and welcome to The Nally Show, where I help you beat your battles and be the best version of you. One of my favorite quotes is, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. In life, I was quick to learn that there is a lot that you can't control, but one thing you forever can is your attitude. So when a breast cancer diagnosis hits in your early 20s, your prime years, it's so easy for it to ruin your life, right? But have I not proven to you that your attitude can change your entire journey? And what should have been the worst days of my life ended up being some of my very best. Today, I am so excited to finally sit down with Lindsay Hope, another 20-something-year-old breast cancer fighter and blogger who totally mastered this idea. Diagnosed at only 22 years old, and I thought 24 was young. She created the Instagram handle Tata to my tatas and the hashtag and blog How to Have Fun with Cancer, where she basically laughs in cancer's face. Upon her diagnosis, she threw a booblerette party, and her Instagram stories are hilarious. She is truly an inspiration for any young adult fighting cancer. Just like me, she's in the middle of undergoing her treatments. But together, we are going to give you 5 ways to have fun with cancer. She's about to get here soon. I apologize in advance for any inside jokes that only we would understand, but I'm so excited to see her. Bye.
I brought a scarf so you could tie for me. I really want an amaretto sour, but like I know that's not good for us right now.
Good thing I have something that looks like an amaretto sour. It has turmeric, which means it's really good for cancer patients like us. Are you okay with that?
Of course. It looks like an amaretto sour.
Yes.
To us.
It's so surreal to have another 20-something-year-old with breast cancer here with me, like we're actually here. Because I met so many people online, and a lot of them are all from all around the world. Kind of a bittersweet feeling to know that we both are fighting this, but it's cool to have someone that you can relate to.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, did you even think it was a possibility to have breast cancer in your 20s?
No, not at all.
At all. Neither of them. But tell me, what was Lindsay Hope like before all this? What was your 20, 21-year-old self like?
I was not like most 20-year-olds, just in the sense that I wasn't going out clubbing all the time. I was more reserved. I'm with someone that I knew I was going to marry at a young age, so I wasn't like looking to party and like find that one guy to hook up with or something like that. I'm in my 4th year of education, so I'm supposed to be graduating April. I'm a very family-oriented person, and I just love being around people. You know, I was active. I was going to Zumba 3 times a week. I was always around children, you know, like I had a great immune system, and all of a sudden, bam, you have cancer.
And when did the cancer diagnosis happen?
So in February, I remember Friday morning I went to a Zumba class, and that afternoon I felt something in my breast. It was actually my right side, as I'm touching my left. And I felt something in my breast, and it was like a lump, but I had such small breasts that it was like, hey, it's probably like my bones or something, like it's nothing. It didn't hurt, or maybe it hurt, you know, for a Friday to Saturday, and then it went away. I totally forgot about it, and I was working at a daycare this summer, and my house is freezing and the outside is super humid, and I would wake up every morning with blood stains on my shirt.
From your breast?
So I was like, hey, I'm getting nosebleeds at night, perfect, I'm scared of blood, like at least it's coming at nighttime. Anyways, that August, after I was done working.
Wait, February
to August? Nothing. Pain went away, didn't even never touch myself, never went to go feel if it was growing, if it was still there, just nothing. August, I was taking a shower, and for some reason I looked down, like at my nipple, and I saw a beauty mark, and I have beauty marks all over my hands, and I was like, hey, like, I know my body enough to know that this was never there before. So I touched it, and it started like oozing, almost like a blood, but it wasn't red, it was brown and thick, like a discharge. I kind of expedited everything. I went to an oncologist right away. I was obviously telling my best friends about this, just I was like, I have no idea what this is, and cancer didn't even cross my mind. You know, my mom's BRCA negative, not to say that I may be BRCA negative.
Did you take the genetic test?
And I'm just a mutant. I have no idea what this gene is.
Same here. Hello.
Yeah.
So when was the official day?
So
of
October
diagnosis?
7th, 2016.
How did you feel when they told you it's breast cancer?
I was almost relieved just because
You were waiting.
I was waiting.
I know.
I was like, I know it's cancer.
I feel like I'm getting really emotional right now, but only because like that's same story you just said is exactly what I went through, and like you're saying it, and I'm seeing like my life like
It's like a deja vu,
unfold. It
for
really
sure.
is. Okay, you got the diagnosis, and then you started how to have fun with cancer, which is a hashtag, and your handle is Tata to my Tata.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious, by the way. When did you have that revelation where like, I'm about to have fun with cancer? When did that like spark?
So I live with depression anyways.
Okay. I would have never guessed that.
I know. Yeah, it's something that I've learned to kind of just like keep to myself. And not that I'm like embarrassed of it, just I've always dealt with it my inner self, you know?
Which is what most people do.
And which is a problem. Now that I'm diagnosed with cancer, having the two dealing with the inside of me, my body wants to scream.
Holy shit, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
Of
you just
course.
want to scream and you're like, how am I supposed to deal with this? I found out with cancer, there's stigmas around it, but it's also very like shushed. Like you never talk about it. It's the disease, it's she had that, or it's the C word, you know? So I felt that like I really wanted to educate people about what I was going through, because at least in my community, no one at the age of 22 has breast cancer. Yes, they have pediatric cancers, of course. You know, like that's the norm. But at 22 to have breast cancer, like that's crazy.
And it's such an awkward age. I was diagnosed at 24.
Exactly.
I can't believe you're 22. Like
Yeah.
that's crazy. But don't you find it's weird going to the hospital, because you can't go to a children's hospital.
Exactly.
Usually it's 0 to 21 and you're 22.
Exactly.
And then you go to our hospitals and it's like
filled with older women.
People.
Yeah.
Like everyone is white here, they're in pains, and then there you are.
And here you are, a vibrant young woman.
Yeah, with our headscarves.
Yeah, like with makeup on and, you know, trying to look good and feel good, and then you're like, I don't belong here.
No.
So that was my like big dilemma. I was like, I don't feel like I belong in this, and I just kind of want to educate people about what I'm going through, because if they don't see it from me, who else are they going to see it from?
Your hashtag is how to have fun with cancer, but we both know it's not always fun. Do you ever feel like you have those down days where you can't have fun with cancer?
Yeah. And I think it's also important to share that it's not, I'm not just having fun with cancer, and cancer is not fun, but I'm just making the best of it. There's some days I cry myself to sleep, not because, you know, like I'm just sad, and just realizing what I'm going through and how I need to be so strong, and not to show people that I'm strong, just to myself. I need to be strong to continue.
It's important to know that, you know, being positive doesn't mean always being happy.
Exactly.
No, being positive is knowing that, you know, there is a light at the end of this tunnel, and taking action, right? I think that's what your hashtag is. It's how to have fun with cancer. It means you have to take action.
Exactly.
It's so easy just to, like you said, cry yourself to sleep and stay in bed.
Exactly.
No, cry yourself to sleep and get up the next morning.
1000%. Living by my hashtag how to have fun with cancer has allowed me to have fun with my life. Every day I try to see the good in things. I try, you know, to just keep swimming, and I try to just be happy, and that was something I had a hard time with before cancer.
Oh yeah.
So cancer is almost like helping me in a sense that, yes, I'm taking time off of everything, so I'm really allowed to focus on myself and me.
Having fun with adversity or going through a hard time, having fun in life overall can be difficult, which is why I think you're doing an amazing job at it. And I have to say, you are such a huge inspiration to any young adult fighting cancer, breast cancer, any kind of cancer. And I would love for you to give some tips.
Yes.
On
5 tips
on how to have fun with cancer. Are you ready?
Yes.
Here are 5 tips to have fun with cancer by Lindsay Hope. Number 1.
Celebrate milestones.
Yes.
Is the biggest one, I think.
Even the littlest milestone.
Yeah, exactly. Pre-surgery, post-surgery, first chemo, last chemo. You know, my sister made a joke, you're popping your chemo virginity. And I'm like, you're right, let's celebrate this.
Well, didn't you have a booblorette?
Yes. So,
what's a booblorette?
Okay. So I'm giving credit to my sister. I'm not taking the credit myself. But basically we were celebrating like tatas to my tatas, goodbye to my breasts. And we just threw myself a huge party just to celebrate that. You know, I'm going to surgery about a week and a half later, and we just want to celebrate that. My sister made t-shirts with John said looking forward to the upgrade. My friend said Lindsay's best friends. It doesn't have to be an outrageous thing. But just celebrate these moments and, you know, take yourself for dinner, go get a glass of wine or something.
I always do pre-chemo parties.
Yes.
So the day right before chemo, I know it's like, I would say it's the last day before I die. Yeah. Practically, because then I'm KO for a week.
Exactly.
So I invite
You're
my
on
friends.
bed rest.
Exactly. So I invite my friends over and we play board games. It's
That's
as
such a
simple
good
as
idea.
that. And then
Really, I think I'm gonna do that.
you should. And then all of them bring food and there's always tons of leftovers. So then I have food for like the week where I'm in
That's
bed
good.
rest. It's perfect.
That's amazing.
Number
2, find the lightness in every situation. Just be silly. You need to be silly and you need to find humor in things. Find humor in the fact that I was explaining to you before that I had my full face of makeup and I had to go for an emergency blood test. And I was just filming myself, you know, that I'm in the cancer wing and I'm just like with a full face of makeup. Like, just find humor in silly things and just laugh about it.
Exactly.
Laughter is the best medicine. So one situation or one example is when I extracted my eggs. Like, I was really trying to find the beauty in that somehow. And it was the most painful thing ever, I found. So, you know, my sister was in the room with me and she was like a proud father. She's like, okay, we got another egg, or okay, Stephanie's here.
just like you're giving birth.
As if she's like the father, like I'm giving birth. She's like my legs are up on the canister, and it was just amazing. It was so funny.
You know what's funny is that I did the same thing. So these 4 eggs of mine, it's at the Royal Victoria Hospital, and every time we drive by with my parents, I always tell my parents, I'm like, oh, say hi to your future grandchildren.
Yes, no joke. Number 3, take on a hobby. I started a blog, which I really enjoy because I love to just, you know, let my emotions and feelings out. It's super therapeutic. Another thing is giving back. I volunteer. I got myself involved in lots and lots of things around my community.
You do fundraisers
Yeah,
too.
fundraisers, exactly. And one fundraiser specifically is for Rethink Breast Cancer, to a study that I'm super passionate about.
Yeah.
So
I love Rethink Breast Cancer.
Yeah,
it's
they're
a really
amazing.
good website for young women.
Yeah, you just have to find things that you're passionate about.
Just to get your mind off of it, and it could be anything. Like you said, yours is a blog. Mine is a blog too, and it's YouTubing and making videos on the Nally Show.
Yeah.
Yours could be something as simple as like painting, drawing.
Makeup. I love makeup and I'm not that good. So I really have been trying like practicing my eyeshadow and like things like that. Things that I love that I just want to get better at.
This is your chance to find and do what you love.
Exactly.
And you should embrace that.
1000%.
Number
4. Surround yourself with family and friends. Pick the ones that are not so good out on the curb.
Oh, hell yes.
Yes.
That's like a very important point.
Bring the ones that are really stepping up back into your life because they're showing you that when push comes to shove, you know, they're there for you. I think that is just super important that you surround yourself with the best people.
And don't forget to ask them for help when you need
yes.
it. Like, they are there for you.
If you can't cook, hell yeah, they should bring you food.
Yeah, oh my god.
What I would do without her, it's not even existent. Last one, girl. Yes, so number 5. So last one is to be loud and proud. And just shine bright with what you have. Depression, anxiety, mental health issues, eating disorders, cancer, everything. Just be proud of who you are because that's who you are. You're born this way.
By being open and loud and proud, there is far more benefits than, you know, disadvantages.
Yeah, you're not dealing with this alone, for
No.
starters.
You connect with people you never thought you would connect with. For
exactly.
Like if I didn't share my cancer and you didn't share yours, we wouldn't be here right now, like sharing head scarf tutorials and sending each other scarves. There's so much more like opportunities, teaching versus, you know, hiding. The more you hide, the more you shut the whole world out, which is why I do agree with being loud and proud about.
You know, yes, don't get me wrong, it sucks. I'm not happy to have cancer and I don't want it ever to come off that way. No. But I'm just taking the situation I'm dealt with and making the best of it. I'm taking a shitty cancer situation, taking shitty chemos, shitty, you know, nausea, shitty everything, and just, yeah, I have nausea, but you know, tomorrow I won't be nauseous, and I'm gonna go out and have a really good day.
Everything you just said applies to anything, any obstacle you're
anyone
facing.
and everything.
Exactly, which is why I think you ended it spot on. It was so perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so
thank you.
much. You killed it. So it's time for the random questions. If you had a magic lantern and a genie inside, and you had to rub it, and you had 3 wishes, what would they be?
This is hard, Nally. Oh my god. Right now it would be to travel.
Where?
I love South America.
Number 2?
Yeah, number 2.
I would love to go to Ellen. That's literally my wish number 2. I know. Okay, if that happens,
yeah,
I'm bringing me.
Yeah, 1,000%. My biggest wish right now, which would just be to finish chemo and just have an easy breeze with it. No, I don't want anything material. I don't want anything like that. I would genuinely just want to finish this off on a good note.
So it's your turn to talk to us. We have a question for you.
What do you do to have fun with whatever you're dealing with, whether it be, taking a break from school when you're writing exams, or mental health, or anything you're handling right now that is stressful to you? What do you do to just say, hey, I need to take a break and I need to do something to have fun?
Comment below. If you have any questions for Lindsay, also ask them below. I'm sure she'll tune into the YouTube channel.
1,000%. Yes.
If you want to follow Lindsay, I'm going to put her information right over here. It's worth it. She'll make you laugh and make you want to have fun. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to watch my vlogs, they're up there. If you want to watch the last episode, it's down there. Don't forget to subscribe, please. I release videos every Monday, and share this if you really like it.
1,000%.
Be patient, be kind to yourself,
be thankful, and be happy.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Fix our head scarves.
Oh, these scarves, man.
Time is very precious to me. I don't know how much I have left, and I have some things that I would like to say. Hopefully, at the end, I'll have something that will be important to other people too. But I can't help it. Now when I'm fighting cancer, everybody knows that. And people ask me all the time about how you go through your life and how's your day. And nothing has changed for me. As Dick said, I'm a very emotional, passionate man. I can't help it. That's being the son of Rocco and Angelina Valvano. That just comes with the territory, right? We hug, we kiss, we love. And when people say to me, how do you get through life or each day, it's the same thing. To me, there are three things we all should do every day. If we do this every day of our life, you're going to have, what a wonderful, number one is laugh. You should laugh every day. Number two is think. You should spend some time in thought. And number three is you should have your emotions moved to tears. Think about it. If you laugh, you think, and you cry, that's a full day. That's a heck of a day. You do that 7 days a week, you're going to have something special. And so, I can't help. I rode on the plane up today with Mike Krzyzewski, my good friend and a wonderful coach, but people don't realize he's a 10 times better person than he is a coach, and we know he's a great coach. He's meant a lot to me these last 5 or 6 months of my battle. But when I look at Mike, I think we competed against each other as players. I coached against him for 15 years, and I always have to think about what's important in life is to think, to me, of three things: where you started, where you are, and where you're going to be. Those are the three things that I try and do every day. It's so important to know where you are. And I know where I am right now. How do you go from where you are to where you want to be? And I think you have to have an enthusiasm for life. You have to have a dream, a goal. You have to be willing to work for it. I just got one last thing. I urge all of you, to enjoy your life, the precious moments you have, to spend each day with some laughter and some thought, to get your emotions going, to be enthusiastic every day. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, nothing great can be accomplished without enthusiasm, to keep your dreams alive in spite of problems, whatever you have, to be able to work hard for your dreams to come true, become a reality. Now I look at where I am now, and I know what I want to do. What I would like to be able to do is to spend whatever time I have left and to give and maybe some hope to others. All right, Arthur Ashe Foundation is a wonderful thing. And AIDS, the amount of money pouring in for AIDS is not enough, but it is significant. But if I told you it's 10 times the amount that goes in for cancer research. I also tell you that 500,000 people will die this year of cancer. And I also tell you that 1 in every 4 will be afflicted with this disease. And yet, for somehow, we seem to have put it in a little bit of the background. I want to bring it back on the front table. We need your help. I need your help. We need money for research. It may not save my life. It may save my children's lives. It may save someone you love. But try, if you can, to support, whether it's AIDS or the Cancer Foundation, so that someone else might survive, might prosper, and might actually be cured of this dreaded disease. I can't thank ESPN enough for allowing this to happen, and I'm going to work as hard as I can, for cancer research, and hopefully maybe we'll have some cures and some breakthroughs. And I'd like to think I'm going to fight my brains out to be back here again next year for the Arthur Ashe recipient. I want to give it next year. I know I've got to go. I've got to go, and I've got one last thing. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Cancer can take away all my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul. And those three things are going to carry on forever. I thank you, and God bless you all. We are starting the Jimmy V Foundation for Cancer Research. And its motto is, don't give up, don't ever give up. And that's what I'm going to try to do. Every minute that I have left, I will thank God for the day, the moment I have. And if you see me, smile and maybe give me a hug, because that's important to me too. And that screen is flashing up there 30 seconds like I care about that screen right now, huh? I got tumors all over my body. I'm worried about some guy in the back going 30 seconds, huh? You got a laugh. Hey, banabla, buddy. You got a laugh. Right, it should be. Nuts.
Yeah.
is a travesty. And it's really, when you think of the number of people who have died or have suffered immeasurably because of it, you want to hold those responsible to account, and yet they're protected by sovereign immunity from being prosecuted, despite the fact that they are very directly responsible for taking the lives of these people by denying them the freedom to choose an alternative that works for them.
Yeah, and just case in point, a friend of mine, Jim Navarro, the father of Thomas Navarro, wanted to go to the Brzezinski Clinic and was not allowed to, and on the death certificate it says that the chemotherapy was why he died.
And Donna Navarro is here tonight. We're honoring her for her struggles and that great movie that documents the life of her son, Thomas.
Pet, Poison and Burn.
Yeah, that is just a horrible, horrible example of how government can very directly and horrifically affect the lives of people. And in their case, it was just so tragic. And it didn't have to be. Obviously, if they had gotten out of the way, who knows? Thomas may have been still alive today. But they stood in the way and they blocked his access. It took months and months and then years, and all the while his condition worsened. So by the time they finally did allow him to have access to Brzezinski's anti-neoplasms, he was so far along. And then what ultimately killed him was the toxic reverberation effect of the chemotherapy and radiation that he had received a year before. It's just so horrible. And his parents knew that that would happen. They knew they needed access to the alternative, and they were prevented by their own government from doing it, even though the consequences were just plainly understood, both by the physicians who administered it and by other physicians who were oncologists who were talking to them about what to do. So.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they told me that the oncologist told them before the treatment they knew it wouldn't work, but they did it anyway.
Right.
What most people don't know, and particularly oncologists don't seem to understand, is that chemotherapy, radiation, conventional treatments, all are inflammatory. Well, the source of cancer is chronic inflammation. So once you change that microenvironment to even more inflammatory by pumping in these chemotherapeutic agents or radiating it, you make it more inflammatory, and that changes it to more malignancy.
So it's adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, so if the chemotherapy and the radiation doesn't kill everything, you know, all the cancer cells, and wipe out the stem cells, you've really made things worse, not better. And that's what we're finding. In fact, I just wrote an article on that that's going to be published real soon about the effect of microenvironment and inflammation, microenvironment and cancer growth. And invasion, particularly invasion, it makes the cancer more invasive. And that's because once you stimulate that cell with this inflammation, it starts secreting what we call metalloproteinases, which are enzymes that dissolve the blood vessel wall, so all these cancers start pouring into the blood vessels. And then that makes the cancer spread, and that's what it's doing. Is that inflammation turns on these enzymes that makes the cancer penetrate tissue, break through these barriers that the body tries to put around the cancer to keep it from spreading. And that makes it worse.
And that's what the tumor really is the wall of the tumor is the body walling off those cells.
Right, usually it tries to form a capsule around it, a fibrous capsule. Right. And this is why vitamin C and things that increase that fibrous capsule strength help out in cancer, because it's helping contain it. And certain flavonoids, for instance, will suppress those proteinase enzymes. For instance, like curcumin and quercetin, ellagic acid, they suppress those enzymes so that the cancer can't penetrate. And then it's a localized cancer, then it's easy to get rid of.
Do we have medical literature that backs up the use of flavonoids? Are there studies, the literature shows that?
Numerous studies, numerous studies. This is one of the hottest fields of research in cancer. It's flavonoid, plant extract, and their effect on cancer. The problem is the clinician is not reading the journal articles in his own journal. Because they're in the clinical journals, they're in the research or oncology journal. They're just not reading them because they don't understand it. It's a lot of biochemistry, it's a lot of mechanism they're not familiar with. They're not familiar with the plants, they don't know how to give it, they don't know that these extracts are purified and available.
Right.
But for instance, you see in leukemia research, they have absolutely shown that leukemia is much more curable if you use quercetin. That most of the leukemias are very sensitive to quercetin. Lymphomas, all of these things are curcumin, quercetin, ellagic acid, resveratrol. All these things inhibit the cancer stem cell, and that's what's interesting about, for instance, curcumin. It actually kills the stem cell, this cancer stem cell. It doesn't bother normal stem cell, but only cancer stem cell.
Curcumin.
Curcumin.
Okay.
And that's the other thing about flavonoids and these plant extracts is they're very selective. They only damage, inhibit, and kill cancer cells. They have no effect on normal cells, except to make the normal cells stronger.
Wow, so the selective toxicity, that's a big thing, because you don't want to kill the good cells, you want to kill only the cancerous.
You see, and that's what they always look for, what's called a magic bullet. Something that will kill the cancer cell and not hurt the normal cell. Well, this does even more. It kills the cancer cell, but it makes the normal cell stronger. And so what they found out, for instance, in radiation treatment of breast cancer, colon cancers, and lung cancers, it actually makes the radiation much more effective, and it protects the tissue that's being irradiated that's normal around the cancer.
Really? And all of these do, the ellagic acid, the resveratrol, curcumin?
It's a long list of them, naringenin and ellagic acid and resveratrol and
they all they affect the stem cells.
They kill the stem cells, suppress the stem cell growth. They kill the daughter cancer cells. They help encase the cancer. They suppress these invasion enzymes, reduce the metastasis, and they protect the tissue, the normal tissue, to help keep it from converting to this same process. Because what you see, when they did this study to see, well, if inflammation is the cause of cancer, most people who have cancer should have chronic inflammation. So they did this large study, and that's exactly what they found. For instance, in certain people, 70% of them had definable inflammation, either arthritis, chronic atherosclerosis, or some chronic infection, and that's what caused the cancer. If you stop the inflammation, you stop the cancer from ever forming.
So do these substances that you're talking about, these flavonoids, they have any effect on the inflammation?
They're powerful anti-inflammatory.
So they're not only anti-cancer, they're anti-inflammatory too.
Yeah, and that's how they're preventing the cancer from occurring.
Okay.
And then they have other mechanisms that affect the cell signaling that kills the cancer, turns on cancer suicide genes.
Okay.
Like P21, P53, and that'll make the cancer cell commit suicide, what we call apoptosis.
So Dr. Blaylock, in light of the fact that these flavonoids are so beneficial, why is not every oncologist using them to treat cancer?
Well, because they don't read their articles. And they don't know what these flavonoids are because they don't know the chemistry. So they've never heard of it. They go to a meeting, and the meeting is about the latest protocol of the latest chemotherapeutic drug.
Right.
And who sponsors the meeting? The makers of the chemotherapeutic drug.
Right.
So you have a room full of oncologists listening to the latest drug, and they'll say, oh, this one, we're getting incredible responses with this drug. Well, as I explained, what happens with that incredible response, it causes dramatic shrinkage of the tumor initially because it's just killing the daughter cell. And some are not even non-malignant cells, but it's not affecting the stem cell. And so then the cancer grows tremendously, but they can say, oh, we get a good response from this chemotherapeutic agent.
And when they say good response, they mean the tumor shrunk.
They mean initially it shrinks the tumor, but they don't say, well, 6 months later or less, it actually is going to grow a lot faster. Right. And it's more likely to metastasize.
So they're using the wrong measurement stick for success. Hi, this is Ty Bollinger. Thanks for watching. If you want to know the truth about cancer, click the link in the description below to watch our award-winning docuseries, The Truth About Cancer, A Global Quest.
What is up, everyone? My name will be Josh. This is Strange Central, and today we're going to be talking about one of the easiest ways to actually make edibles. So I know a lot of you guys love the topic videos, and a lot of you guys have been asking for a change of setting, so I figured why not get two birds stoned at once and actually jump into edible making tutorial of sorts. So I'm going to be making a 2-stick batch of can of butter. This right here is actually the Easy Butter Maker. They come in a 2-stick unit and a 1-stick unit, but I'm going to be using the 2-stick unit today because I want to make a big old batch. When it comes to can of butter, most people just think of these two things right here, cookies and or brownies, but realistically that's not even the beginning of where can of butter can start. You can put it on toast, you can put it on waffles, you can put it on pancakes, you can eat it, it's butter. You can basically substitute it for anything that uses butter. There's a lot of recipes like mac and cheese. This right here is one of my favorites and one we will be doing today. I think we're going to be doing mac and cheese and cookies. I might have to run to the store in between cuts and grab a different, I don't like chocolate chip just because it kind of upsets my stomach. So I might grab like, I can't do oatmeal either. Some kind of a sugar cookie or something. But basically anything that has butter, I know most pastas are like 4 to 8 tablespoons of margarine and or butter. Just substitute with canned butter and you're going to have yourself not only a delicious meal, but something that's going to get you well and medicated. I am going to be using decarbed herb. This is basically just herb that I've been vaping on for the last couple weeks. So this is going to be perfect. We are actually going to, I'm going to adjust the camera, run to the store and probably grab some more mix, and then we will actually jump into this. So I hope you guys enjoy this review. Let's get it. Alrighty guys, so we are actually jumping into making the butter. So this right here is our ingredients list. We have the butter maker right here, and then this right here is 2 sticks of butter, basically just chopped up into 1-inch cubes. And then we also have a little bit of water. You basically just have to fill it to this fill line right here, or to this release valve. Basically just below that release valve. And I'm also gonna put a little bit of olive oil in it. And this right here is actually my ABV, or my already been vaped material. So this bud actually already is decarbed and ready to be made into edibles. So let's actually get into packing this thing. We are gonna take the butter and basically just drop it all in there. You just gotta fit these 2 sticks in there. That is why you kind of do have to cube it up, is because you couldn't just like shove 2 sticks in there. Makes it a little easier to melt if they are kind of all in little cubes. So fast forward while I'm putting all these cubes in here. Alrighty guys, so we do have our butter right here. Now we are gonna actually take the water and, like I said, gonna fill just below this release valve right here. We're gonna take that and fill her up. Just start pouring. Like I did say earlier, I am gonna splash just a little bit of this olive oil in there just to make the herb dissolve a little bit better into the actual mixture. We do know THC is not water soluble, so hopefully the butter fat will actually help with that, but I figured why not add just a little bit of the extra oil. We are gonna go ahead and put this thing on there now. You just basically press this thing on top, and this is gonna be where we put all of our herb. So let's go ahead and pour the herb in there. It is gonna be a little bit brown because, like I said, it is ABV, so this probably doesn't even look much like cannabis, but it's already gone through my vape, it's already been decarbed, so this hopefully actually should be really, really good for edibles. They do say don't pack it down, so I don't want to like overdo this, but you do want to pretty much fill the thing up. Once it is filled up, we're just going to basically take our top and screw it on. And once the top is screwed on here, we are ready to put it on the stove. Alrighty guys, so now after we have the top tightly screwed on, we are just going to throw it on this back burner and turn it to a medium heat. And basically just let it sit until we see steam rising out of here. Once you hear it gurgling and see steam rising out, oh my gosh, that's weird that it's purple. It's red in real life, but it looks purple on this for some reason. That's crazy. But once you see gurgling and once you see steam rising, that's when we're gonna actually take it off, and we are actually gonna basically have our butter. It should be less than 10 minutes. It really should not take that long. That's kind of this Easy Butter Maker's tagline, is can of butter in less than 10 minutes. It's really quick, it's really easy, and you have your butter. So that's really nice because all of us don't have all day to, you know, make our meds. So for us that actually want to make our own meds, this is very, very, very convenient, and I am very excited to actually see how well it works. So we are gonna wait about 10 minutes and then I will actually show you the result. So now that it is gurgling and it is starting to steam, we are gonna basically just take it off of the heat source here. Go ahead and turn that off. And we are just going to basically let it sit for a couple seconds. You are gonna see, actually I'm gonna open it up just so you guys can see. There is a good bit of butter now in there. So now we're basically gonna take this mixture and basically just pour it into Pyrex or into plastic, and then we're gonna separate the water and we will have our butter. So 1 second while I get the shot up to pour. Now we are gonna go ahead and pour this into this plastic here. And basically after we pour it in here, we're kind of just gonna let it settle, and the butter will settle on the top, and on the bottom will be kind of like a watery substance. And then you just have to basically, like I said, you're gonna grab this little thing right here. This is not provided, but they're pretty cheap. You can get it from any store for like $2. And you're basically just gonna suck it in, suck the water out, and you will have your butter. It's as easy as that. So we're gonna start using the strainer to basically get the excess water out of there. You just have to put the strainer through the butter and suck up all the water pretty much. Just make sure not to get in your butter with it pretty much is the main thing you're trying not to do. Alright guys, so here is actually our final product. Sat in the fridge for a little bit and then I actually like drained all the stuff out of it. This is actually our, I guess I'll call it our slab of can of butter. I would say it made anywhere from like 14 to 20 tablespoons. I don't actually know exactly how much it made, but I would say that's actually a pretty nice little slab of butter there. So let's actually go about throwing this in some cookies and possibly in some macaroni and get to cooking our edibles. So this is actually our final mixture here. We are just gonna be doing the chocolate chip cookies, no mac and cheese for tonight, unfortunately, because I would say this made actually just about at a half cup of butter, which is actually what this recipe calls for. So I actually just threw the butter and an egg and then just the mixture in here, and we will actually use a spoon and go ahead and mix it all up, and then I will ball it out, put it on some like a cookie sheet, and that's where I will like catch up with you next time. So now we actually have our cookies mixed up and laid out on a cookie sheet. I know this is probably enough cookies for actually 2 cookie sheets, but I only have 1 to work with, so kind of crammed them on there. If they all end up as like one gigantic cookie, I'm not gonna be that surprised, because like this one right here, these ones are definitely gonna end up combining. I'm pretty sure all of them are. But this is about 16 cookies. I haven't counted yet. Let's see, 4, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, sorry. 18 cookies. So that's a pretty decent amount for about a cup of can of butter. I don't know how strong they're gonna be, but if you guys don't actually know how to make cookies, really, really easy. Look it up on YouTube. All you really have to do is follow the instructions on the back of the box. So I'm actually gonna let these cook. My oven's preheating right now. It's at like 155. I think I gotta get like 350. Cook them for about 10 minutes and then let them sit out, and I will tell you what the final products look like. And then in like an hour or maybe longer, I'll actually give you like a review of how strong the cookies are, I guess. So let's actually let them cook. Alrighty guys, so we actually now have our cookies completely done and they are in some Tupperware. So I'm actually gonna get to eating these, and I will check in with you guys in a little bit to tell you guys how the effects are. So cheers, ting. Alrighty guys, so I'm actually gonna give you some kind of like a review on these edibles and tell you how they worked on me. It is the next morning. You can tell I'm in a different shirt, so if that tells you guys anything, these edibles were definitely effective. I probably ate about 5 or 6 of them last night before I fell asleep. It was pretty late before I actually finished making these last night. I think I had some stuff to do in between, so I was done at about 11, and then I ate the cookies and passed out. But before I fell asleep, I definitely did feel the cookies start taking effect. They were very, very strong, which is kind of unique for me, because usually I can eat at least 1,000 milligram edible, and really it has no effect on me. I'm gonna say those 6 cookies had somewhere around 200, if not more, milligrams of THC in them, because they definitely did a number on me. I got a really, really good night's sleep, and you know, it's like a long process that takes hours upon hours upon hours, because you gotta, you know, grill up the bud, decarb the bud, then you gotta go about baking. But with the Easy Butter Maker, it's easy. Like, I'm being 100% honest about that. The only thing I thought after that was done was, wow, that was easy. Like, I need to make edibles a lot more often if it is that easy. I did actually go to the market the other day though,